Hello readers, it's Sasha, and today I am going to be bringing to you my August wrap-up. To be honest, I'm not super happy with the books that I read in August. I feel like as a whole, the quality of my reading did kind of suffer a little because the books that I read, they just weren't that great. I did find like a new favorite of this year, but other than that, most of them were just kind of like good. I didn't really do anything. I also DNF'd twice this month, which just shows something. So let us dive right in to our stats because I have a lot to say about these books and I don't want to be here forever. So let's dive in. In terms of genres read, I read 1 contemporary, 3 fantasies plus a DNF fantasy. I DNF'd 1 historical fiction. I read 1 mystery and 2 romance. 2 romance. That's crazy. In terms of star rating, I did give 1 book 5 stars, 1 book 4.5 stars, 2 books 4 stars, 2 books 3.5 stars, 1 2.5 stars, and then 2 DNFs. I read 1 book that was less than 300 pages. I read 4 books that were between 300 to 500 pages, and I read 2 books over 500 pages. And that does not include the DNFs that I DNF'd. But in total, including the books that I DNF'd, I read 3,619 pages this month. And finally, in terms of age range, I read 6 young adults and DNF'd 1 young adult, and 1 adult and DNF'd 1 adult. So let's just dive into the books because like I said, have a lot to say about them. So I started off the month by reading The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. I did read this for my Educate Your Shelf reading vlog for Indigenous authors, so I will link that down below. This is about a girl who is biracial. Her father was Indigenous, her mother was white, and she doesn't really feel like she fits into either of those communities, and so it does deal with her identity in that, but then she also deals with a big giant crime that happens in her community and how she can be a part of helping the crime be not a crime anymore. It's a chunker of a book, and that is pretty much exactly what it is. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, although for a lot of it, especially toward the end, I did really want to give it like a 3 to a 3.5, but I will kind of explain why I gave it 4 stars. So starting off with the things I loved, the writing was exquisite. I cannot wait to read more Angeline Boulley as she produces more works. Hopefully she does, because this was truly a stunning piece of literature. I really had a great time in terms of the writing style. It really fit with me. I loved it. The story itself was interesting. I went into this expecting it to be a little bit different than it was. I expected more of like a murder mystery and less of a like drug crime type situation. And I was pleasantly surprised with this because I feel like going into it with those expectations, I could have been pretty let down, but I wasn't. I kind of vibed with the whole story and how it was like more of a low-key crime instead of like murder all the time. So I kind of liked that. I kind of thought that was good. I like that. I thought the ending really wrapped up perfectly. That is the reason why this did end up going to a 4-star instead of a 3.5 3-star, because the ending I thought was perfect. I thought the way that it wrapped up was truly exceptional, and I thought it was going in a different direction and it didn't, and I was really excited about that, and that's why she landed on a 4. So yeah, this was a good book, but there were flaws. Obviously there were flaws. Let's talk about the texting conversations that happened between, what is her name? Donis. Okay. Donis had some texting with her best friend, and they were the most cringy texting ever. Like, I was so unimpressed with it. Like, so unimpressed. It was literally like, "Are you sirs? Mom said I can't go to Kate's party." Like, shut up. Like, I hated that. That made no sense. I hated everything about that, just to let you know. I also think there were a couple of like inconsistencies. For example, there is this scene where this senior in high school goes away with his older girlfriend for a weekend at a cottage alone, and I'm sorry, but like, what parent would let a high school kid go away for a weekend with their partner when they're literally still in high school? Like, that doesn't add up to me personally. Like, that just kind of took me out of the story because I was like, that makes no sense, but okay. I also did feel like this was a bit too long. It is a bit of a chunky book. It's tall, so it definitely had a lot to it. I feel like it could have been condensed in less pages. How many pages was it? It was almost 500 pages. Like, girl, we could have done with like 400 pages, because half of this, not even half, but like at least like 100 pages were like unnecessary like thinking or like conversations that didn't need to happen. So I think it could have been cut down, but that's just my personal uneducated opinion. So there was also this thing that Donis kept doing where literally every single time she mentioned that she was gonna cry, she mentioned like the pre-tingle nose in your cry, like the pre-cry tingle in your nose. Does that make sense? Maybe. And I was like, oh my god, like I relate, like when I'm about to cry, like I either get like a tingle in my nose or a tingle in the back of my throat. I was like, bitch, I get it. And then she kept mentioning it and I was like, okay, I get it. I switched tones so fast after like the 4th time it was mentioned. I was like, girl, there's no need. We already can relate to you a little bit. We don't need to go into this anymore. So that was annoying. And also the first plot twist that came about was pretty underwhelming in my opinion. I saw it coming pretty early on and I was pretty proud of myself because I usually don't see plot twists coming. So I was a little underwhelmed when the first plot twist came. The second one had me in shakes. I was feeling things, but this one did not. So yeah, overall good book, but it didn't live up to the expectations I had made for myself in my head because this was honestly like really hyped for everybody and I don't think it worked for me as well. Next, I ended up DNFing If I Ever Get Out of Here by Eric Gansworth. Again, I was trying to read this for my Indigenous authors reading vlog, and unfortunately, I was just not in the right headspace for this. There was something about this story. This story is about a young boy who lives on the reserve, and he goes to school off the reserve, and people make fun of him for where he lives and for the fact that he's Indigenous. And this is set in the 70s. So this is still a time where residential schools are a thing, where that segregation is still pretty intense for the Indigenous versus the white people. And he meets this guy who is a white guy who doesn't really see or like care that he is Indigenous, and they bond over their love of music. And that is a really special concept. And I definitely know that Eric Gansworth took a lot of his own life experiences and put it into this story. And it's an important story to have, especially because we don't see a lot of young Indigenous boy stories in a contemporary young adult setting. However, the story lacked plot for me. Like, I could not get behind Eric Gansworth's writing style in any way, shape, or form. Like, it was not working for me. There was no plot. I felt like the story was not going anywhere. And for me, that's a huge red flag, and it's something that I cannot sit through, even if I really want to, even if it's for that clout. I can't get behind it. So where I do think it was a really important story, and I encourage people to read it because it definitely had a lot of really important educational tools, as well as a little bit more of an understanding of what it's like to grow up as a child when there were still residential schools being a thing, but I could not get behind it, so I DNF'd it. Next, I ended up reading They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, and the way that I thought I read this like 3 months ago is actually sending me. I forgot all about this book. When I was getting the books ready, I was like, oh shit, I read that. So yes, this is about 2 boys. There is a, what do you call it? Like a phone service, I guess, that calls you when, on the day you're gonna die. So they call you between like midnight and like, I think 3 or 4 a.m. and they tell you that you're gonna die sometime within the next day. So sometime from that phone call up until like 11:59 p.m.
You're going to die.
So that's that. This one guy gets that call and he's just like, oh my god, he's very like introverted. And this other guy gets this call while he's in the middle of like trying to kill someone else, which is kind of funny and ironic. But yeah, they end up meeting and they end up falling for each other, and it goes from there. And it's not, I mean, that happens. So yes, I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Concept, really good. I really like this type of concept. However, I do wish it was slightly set in the future. So this was published in 2017. It was set in 2017, and I feel like it was a bit difficult to connect with, but the concept was really cool. I really loved the friendship element in this. I feel like every single friendship was very wholesome. There was a friendship between the first guy and his best friend, who is a single mother, and they had a really pure friendship. The friendship between these 2 boys prior to them realizing they have feelings for each other, really precious. And the friendship between the second boy and his foster family was really precious. And so I think friendship is a really big theme in this book, and I adored that. I thought that was great. And I also really love that there is casual queerness in this. We definitely don't see a lot of queer Latin boys, and both of them are queer and Latin and boys. So that was nice to have, and it was just casually talked about. They didn't feel any shame for who they were, and well, that's a lie, but it's okay. But I really liked that, and I thought it was pretty progressive for young adult literature, just because I still feel like queer men are very like taboo almost in literature, especially like queer men authors who write about queer boys. Like, I feel like that's like such a weird thing. Like, it shouldn't be so taboo, but it is. I really liked that that was what this was. I could not get behind how many typos were in this book. There were so many typos. It was literally like to the point where I was just like, bitch. Like, we can't do this anymore. So that was great. And they also did start several chapters with Deathcast called this person, or Deathcast did not call this person because they are not going to die today, or because they are dying today. And that got so annoying so fast. Like, at first I was fine with it because it was nice having these like little like POVs thrown in there, but I got real tired of it real fast and I didn't love it. Hello. Hi. Hi. Can I help you? Want to help me with my review? Let's try this again. So Mateo, who is the first guy that I was talking about, who's very introverted, he's very much a do-gooder. And it got to the point where I was like, nobody is actually this good, especially as like a teenager. Nobody's this good. Nobody is this selfless. And so that was a bit of a struggle for me in terms of trying to read this and being like, okay, this is a teenager, but he's not actually like acting like a teenager. He's acting like a 40-year-old man who has like a god complex. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Have you helped me enough? I also find that I did struggle in terms of their POVs because although they had very distinct personalities, I feel like their voices kind of meshed together a little bit while I was reading it, and I had to kind of stop the chapter and be like, okay, who am I reading from? Because they both kind of sounded the same, even though they were so drastically different and their personalities were so different. I do feel like they were like the same in some ways, and so that was a little bit of a turn off as well. And the ending was kind of anticlimactic. Like, this type of book, I wanted something more from the ending because they literally tell us the ending in the title. But like, I don't know, it just felt really anticlimactic. Like, there's nothing else to really say about it. It didn't really wow me. It didn't really take me away. Like, I was just like, oh, that's it. Okay. And so that was a little bit of a struggle for me as well. But that is it. It was still like a pretty good book. I would definitely recommend it to people, but it had its flaws. Next, I ended up reading The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I gave this first book 4.5 out of 5 stars. So this is about a young girl named Esta who has a certain type of magic where she can travel through the layers of time. However, she is in New York City, which is where people like her, the mages, are trapped behind a brink. So she can't actually leave New York City, or else it would kind of strip her of her power and kind of turn her into a shell of who she was. And so the whole point of this is she is trying to get a book from the past and hopefully stop the brink from existing. That's the point. And she's trying to bring it to the present so that the person who tasked her with this can help stop the brink from being a thing. That's pretty much it. I really love this book. I thought it was such a great way to start a series, and the concept was so interesting. I love 1900s New York. Like, I find it so fascinating. So that part really, like, I was into it. This also has a really cool heist. So like, if you're into heists, this has a really great heist in it. And I didn't realize it had a heist in it until we came to the heist. And I was like, oh my God, it's a heist. And I was like freaking out. So I love that. I found the story to be really fast-paced. It is quite dense at some points, but overall, I do feel like this is a fast-paced story. I was constantly engaged, constantly wanting to know what was going to happen, and it was nice. The writing was really well kept. Like, it was good. I loved Esta and her love interest in this story. I feel like it had the exact amount of banter that I like in a relationship, but it's not exactly enemies to lovers because they don't like actively hate and want to murder each other, and I really love that in this book. Didn't love all the typos. There were quite a few typos in this one as well. And I feel like I'm such like a typo and grammar like tyrant because I'm like, oh my God, like you can't have a typo. But for some reason it really takes me out of the story when I'm like, oh, this is supposed to say and, but it says add. Like something like that. Like I don't know exactly how to describe it. What the f is that? And finally, I did end up guessing one of the plot twists, at least partially. So I definitely was not as surprised as I feel like some people were for the ending of this book. I didn't guess like the full plot twist. I was feeling like ways about it. But some parts of it, I was like, okay, bitch, like, I know. So that's that. And then I immediately picked up The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell, which is chunky. And I just really wanted to pick up the second book because the first book was so good to me. And unfortunately, I can't really go into the synopsis because it's the second book, but it does just follow the continuation of where we left off in book 1. This book ended up being a 3 out of 5 stars for me. It definitely didn't live up to the first book in my mind, and I was really disappointed with it overall. I thought pros, I guess, would be there were some interesting developments in terms of relationships, not just our main relationship with Esta and her love interest, but also relationships with the side characters as well, which I thought was quite interesting. And we do love some casual queerness just thrown in there. I love to see it. We love to see it. It is nice to have, especially in these types of books. I am so confused. I was so confused. My entire brain was just not working. The 6 brain cells I have were at like max capacity while trying to read this book, because I feel like she took on so much and added so much, and then there was so much, and my brain was like, what is happening? So I didn't love that. Every single character made this book entirely too complicated. Like, everything could have been solved if people hadn't been stupid. Like, this book was so long. Another con against it. Like, it is so long. It was over 600 pages, I'm almost certain. Yeah, it was almost 700 pages, and every single character made their work so much more difficult. And I just feel like nobody's actually that stupid in real life. And that's what really, like, took me out of the story, because I was like, what? Like,
hello?
And there was also, again, a lot of typos and some super boring POVs as well, because something about this series is that they do tend to go back and forth between several different people, and some of those POVs were quite boring, and I just kept being like, okay, next. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't love that part. But overall, pretty good stuff. Kind of is okay. Is all right. Yeah, it was fine. Next, I read my favorite book of the month, and one that I did not think I would like this much, but here I am. 5 Feet Apart by Rachel Lippincott with Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis. So, this book, short but mighty. This is about 2 kids who have CF, which is cystic fibrosis, which is a condition in which your lungs and your body produces too much mucus, and it's harder for you to breathe. So they both have it, and it is quite dangerous for 2 people with cystic fibrosis to be close to each other because their immune systems are really sensitive as is, so putting 2 of them together is quite dangerous. But they both start falling for each other while they're in the hospital taking their treatment, and it gets a little bit stressful because they want to be closer to each other, but they can't be because of their respective diseases. When I tell you that this romance was so cute, like, they did so many cute things together, I was quaking. Like, they were so cute together. I honestly, some of the things that happened, I just kept swooning, like, in my bed. I was just like, this is so pure. This is so cute. Like, they kept doing cute things. And I was just like, there was one scene. Oh my God. If you've read this, can you, like, DM me on Twitter or something? Because I want to talk about how much I love this so much, and I love them. They were such a cute couple. I didn't necessarily love the ending of this because it didn't really fit in with, like, my vibe, but it was so incredibly realistic to the story and the type of story that she was telling. I couldn't really consider it a con because it was so important and so realistic. So I was just like, okay, like, I'm sad, but, like, it's fine. And every single character added something. I loved every character in this story. There wasn't a single person where I was like, why are you talking? Like, you don't belong here. I loved it. I loved that. So, in conclusion, read this book. Next, I ended up reading Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. This book was about a girl named Ruthie who works at a retirement home, and she's worked at the front desk of a retirement home for her entire adult life, and she kind of forgets what it's like to be an adult, like a 25-year-old pretty adult, until this guy comes, and he is a really important guy's son, and he's kind of like a badass. He wants to be a tattoo artist, like, he's living his, like, best life, and he comes and he starts working for these 2, like, older ladies who live there, and it's a lot. I love chitsy little romances. I think they make my heart so happy. Like, anything that has, like, this illustrated type cover, I will immediately be like, yep, I want to read it, because they just make my heart swell. This didn't have a lot of smut, so if you're interested in, like, a smutty romance, this definitely didn't have that. It was more of a character development type romance and slow burn, and I was okay with that.
It wasn't like, I wasn't mad about it.
And my 2 favorite characters, Renata and Eggie, were the 2 old ladies that the guy was working for. 10 out of 10, hands down, stole the show. They were some lovely badass biddies, and I loved them with my whole heart. However, I did find this story to be quite generic. There were a lot of things that were interesting and fun and quirky about the story, but overall, like, the formula was very similar to everything I've read before in terms of, like, these adult chitsy romances. So that was kind of a con in my opinion. Ruthie as a character was really annoying. She acts like she's, like, literally never seen a man before, and I know she grew up in a very Christian home. Her father is a minister. Like, she had a very difficult upbringing in terms of figuring out your sexuality, and not even, like, figuring out, like, you're queer, but, like, figuring out what you like sexually as a person. It's really hard to figure that out in a very religious, conformed setting. And so I understand where she's coming from. Like, I get that. However, she literally acted like she's never seen a man before, and I was just like, honey, I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. So there's that. that was kind of frustrating. And I feel like the whole religious thing was kind of overdone, and I had absolutely no idea that there were any sort of religious aspects going into this book, but I do feel like it was a little overdone, and I wasn't the biggest fan of that. But overall, it was a good story. I would definitely recommend it, but I don't know, wasn't my favorite. Then I ended up reading The Serpent's Curse by Lisa Maxwell. When you can't see my eyeballs, you know the book is too big. This is the third and final, I guess not final now, but third and final book I will ever read of Lisa Maxwell's series. Oh my god. I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was a continuation again, but I just really did not like the story. There were definitely parts of it that were good, and I can't fault it for that, so I will give it the 2.5, but holy crap, this took me forever to read. I did not like this book. So pros, I guess the series has ended. So that is a really big pro for me. Like, my time reading the series has ended. So 10 out of 10, love that. Like, I will give her credit. Like, some of the ideas were pretty cool. Some of the ways that she crafted her thoughts were pretty interesting. However, there was no need for this book to be so goddamn long. Like, this book is so long. It's literally like 750 pages. Like, my hand hurt after reading this. Like, there was no need. I still don't understand the magic. I thought after 3 books, where they were all very chunky, I would start understanding the magic a little better, especially Esta's, because her magic is a little bit, it's unique. But I still didn't understand. So maybe I'm just dumb, but or maybe this didn't have, maybe this just didn't have what I was looking for. I think that's it. There was a bullfighting scene, and I am a huge believer in bullfighting scenes being eliminated from real life and books. I think oh my god, hello. I think bullfighting is one of the stupidest things that you can do. They're literal animals. Like, you riding a bull and trying to like egg them on and then getting angry when they get angry and try to attack you and kill you. Like, I think that's so incredibly stupid. And I'm sorry if you're like one of those people who's like, oh my god, but I love bullfighting. Sorry, but I don't care. I think it's really stupid. And for all of the things that they could have chosen, choosing bullfighting just really pissed me off. And I didn't like that. Again, side characters were pretty meh in a few POVs. We added some from the last book that I didn't like, and then I think there were some new ones that I also, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of. There were some weird subplots going on that I also didn't understand, and there were a lot of typos. And you know how I was talking about how I love Essa and her love interest? They could have both died, and I would have been completely fine with that. This literally sucked the soul out of my body. Like, I did not like it. And also, her love interest in her had a little, like, shaboom boom, and then he couldn't stop fixating on the fact that she could be pregnant, and he kept bringing it up. He kept being like, but what about the complications? Bitch, can you chill out, please? Like, you're trying to save the world, and like, I don't, like, oh my god, it was so annoying. I was literally like, shut up. And also, the ending left on like a really weird cliffhanger, and this was supposed to be like her last book in the series. Like, it was supposed to be just a trilogy. If this had just been a trilogy, I would have been so pissed at the ending. I would have been like, you can't just leave us with absolutely no information and zero understanding of what happens to this person. Like, I was so happy when I finished. I like through the book. 2.5 is generous, but it's what I'm sticking with because I've already made my graphics. So yeah. And finally, my last DNF of the month, which is T, She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This is about a young girl in 1345 Mongol-ruled China who is given the fate of nothingness, where her brother is given the fate of greatness. And then her brother ends up dying, and so she ends up taking his place, pretending to be him in order to receive his greatness. I liked parts of this book. Story was interesting. Like, it was an interesting enough story. I feel like the characters, like the casual queerness that I did read was nice. Like, it was cool. Like, it was nice to have just like queer characters just thrown in there. However, I didn't care about the characters. I didn't feel anything about them. I felt literally nothing. Like, things would happen and I'd be like, aw, okay. I just did not care. And I feel so bad saying that, but like, also I don't, because, you know, it's like my life and whatever. But I didn't love that. The writing, I couldn't gel with the writing, because this is supposed to be 1300s China, and they use words like burp, fart, and they use like a swear word. They use the C word. Like, those weren't words that were used back then. And it just really pissed me off, because I feel like it took away from the accuracy and the efficacy of what this story was supposed to do, because I was just like, oh, they said the word burp. Like, they said that they burped. They said that they called this guy fart face. Like, I'm sorry, do we not know that it's 1345? Of course, words were used that were similar, but instead of trying to like modernize a historical fiction, why don't we just kind of not use those phrases to begin with and pick things that are a little bit more connected to the time period you're writing from? Like, you can't just pick and choose. You wanted to write this historical fiction, but you want to use modern terms. Like, you can't pick and choose. You have to pick, okay, I'm writing this historical fiction fantasy. I'm going to use terms that aren't like from the 1900s or the 2000s. Like, it pissed me off, so I stopped reading it. And this was the Winer's Book Club pick, which at the time of me filming this, it's literally happening in 2 hours. But at the time that you're seeing this, it happened like 2 or 3 days ago. So I will link it down below, but I just wanted to let you know that I didn't like it. And spoiler alert, neither did Darian. We both DNF'd. So that is everything I have to say for today. Those are all the books that I read. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and how you felt about them, and if you share or not share any of the opinions that I have. Like I said, these are just opinions. Like, if these are your favorite books, good. I'm so glad you were able to get something out of them that I wasn't, because honest to God, like, when people are able to get things out of books, it makes me so happy. Like, even if I can't, like, books were made for people to enjoy and for people to consume, and not everybody's gonna love or not love the same things. If you got something out of The Serpent's Curse, good for you. If you got something out of She Who Became the Sun, good for you. If you got something out of If I Ever Get Out of Here, good for you. I just could not. But that is everything. Thank you for tuning into this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. I will be posting once a week, and I have some pretty fun videos coming up that I'm sure you're not going to want to miss out on. And until next time, bye readers!